Hello there. If you haven't quite worked it out yet, despite talk of governing for everyone, this Labour government is openly attacking its enemies and rewarding its friends. This Labour government has emulated the Tory government by initiating Operation Early Dawn, designed to ease the pressure of overcrowding on our prisons, with those waiting for a court date being held on remand in police cells until prison spaces can be found for them. And those the police decide that pose a risk to society will not be bailed, and I wonder exactly what type of people that will be rigorously applied to. Especially as hurty words on social media are so dangerous these days. In fact, those who spout hurty words are now deemed more dangerous than those who pose a danger to women and children, judging by recent sentencing by judges. The Ministry of Justice has also brought forward 567 new prison cells because of demand. Mark Fairhurst, the chair of the Prison Officers Association, said on Saturday, "This is all a result of the rioters. Last week we had the biggest influx of new receptions I've seen for quite some time. We had 397 new receptions. As of Friday, we only had 340 spaces left in the adult closed male estate, which is feeling the most pressure." Some would argue it is the result of some unexpectedly overzealous sentencing and the blanket removal of bail for some offenders. After all, these same judges had already been releasing many unsavoury characters who many would regard as a danger to our children. And this and the previous government were both releasing other prisoners early due to a lack of prison spaces. So as soon as they put their draconian responses to these limited riots in place, they knew they had a capacity problem. This is a terrible situation to be in. What on earth would happen were there to be another riot in the near future? Anyway, had the police services actually policed fairly and without fear or favour, then I would say it's arguable that maybe twice as many people would have been forced onto our prison service than at present. But many seem to have escaped this instant justice thing. So two-tier policing might have its benefits. Now, prison spaces are a bit like house prices. If house prices start falling, it proves the government has failed the economy. And if more prison spaces are required, it proves the government has failed on law and order, and that goes for police officers too. If you need bucket loads of those, then law and order must be fracturing. And look at where we are today. But all now is hunky-dory because the Labour administration is getting tough on all this crime. Well, they're getting tough on half of it anyway. You know, the few hundred hotheads over the last week or so. But no crackdown on general knife crime, shoplifting, constant antisocial behaviour, fraud, etc., etc., etc. But we are to see a crackdown on something called extreme misogyny, to the point of keeping a careful watch on schoolboys and reporting them to prevent for any early signs of misogyny. You know, failure to accept the pronoun regime in the classroom for a start. What will they do with these errant lads? Off to re-education, no doubt. So it seems that the educational wokery dished out thus far has not been strong and deep enough. In fact, the government is going to treat extreme misogyny in the same way as they treat terrorism. I wonder how many lone wolf misogynists they'll find. And all this from a government that cannot define what a woman is. How will the trans issue factor into this, for example? Will this be laid out in their new laws? I doubt it. They'll make that bit of any legislation they do produce as woolly as possible, and then let the woke judiciary decide via case law, so you know what the outcome would be. Now many people have brought FGM into this, saying it's misogynist. But if this is a family thing where both mother and father decide together, then it could be argued that it's not misogyny, unless it is only driven by the male side. But there are other issues here too: forced marriage, acid attacks, domestic violence, honour killings. But is making fun of a woman or women misogyny? How about those grooming gangs? But I have to be honest, I don't trust this system to operate this new anti-misogyny policy in anything other than a two-tier way. Any evidence that diverts attention away from punishing those that are anti-woke and want to control our borders properly will not be tolerated. It will be treated in the same way as stop and search was treated under the Tories, and for the same reasons. You know it, I know it, and the government knows it. It seems that the uniparty blob has decided that injustice does not matter. All that matters is that they target the right people for punishment. Now, at the start of this, I said that Labour is openly targeting its enemies and rewarding its friends. But it's not quite as clear-cut and dried as that, since not much, if anything, has changed since Labour took office from the Tories. The same two-tier system was in place under the Tories, remember. As an example, just look at the reaction by them to the instant pro-Palestine rallies post the October the 7th atrocities. So as far as I'm concerned, it is our establishment overlords that are running the show, not elected governments. And they are targeting the young in schools for re-education and woke brainwashing. They are targeting the elderly for financial punishment due to their wrongthink, as well as anyone who believes in controlling our borders. But they're rewarding all the union paymasters with lots and lots of lolly now, aren't they? The only difference is that Labour, with its huge majority, is just doing it more openly. So this next bit should come as no surprise, and something that the Tories would never have had the nerve to do. Although you do get the impression that the Tories would have liked to have done this. While any pensioner with an income over about 12 grand a year is having their annual winter heating allowance removed, Labour government ministers are getting taxpayers' help to pay the heating bills for their second homes. Yes, ministers on 10 times the income of these hard-pressed pensioners are allowed to claim for their heating. With the Mail reporting that 11 of Keir the Neela Starmer's cabinet have made such claims over the last 3 years for amounts that have soared by over 75%. And the way this cut for pensioners was announced by the Chancellor Rachel Reeves made it sound almost vindictive. All I could hear from her was, "It's the previous Tory party government that maybe do this to you ageing Tory voters." Now, as far as I'm concerned, any Labour politician that claims their second home heating allowance going forwards is a hypocrite. If pensioners on the breadline can be forced to do their bit to fill this suddenly found, yawning 20 billion quid hole in the Treasury, then so can MPs that support it on over 80 grand a year. Plus expenses, of course. Can't they?